Amy Shira Teitel is a space blogger who specializes in spaceflight history. She was at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory during the landing of Curiosity on Mars, providing real-time coverage of the event. We'll talk with Amy about Curiosity and also about space exploration. Jason and I will also discuss colonizing Mars, ongoing UFO sightings in South Carolina, and other space and UFO news right now on Spacing Out.
Greetings everyone and welcome to Spacing Out. I'm Jason McClellan.
And I'm Maureen Ellsbury.
Thank you for taking the time to join us today. Later in the show, we'll talk with space blogger Amy Shira Teitel about Curiosity's Mars mission and space exploration. But first, let's talk about the news.
August 15th marked the 35th anniversary of the WOW signal, the radio signal detected by Dr. Jerry Ammon on August 15th, 1977 with Ohio State University's Big Ear Radio Telescope. The signal, named after Ammon's reaction, was so strong that it catapulted the Big Ear's recording device off the chart, according to the Big Ear's website.
Some speculate the signal, which has never been detected again, could have originated from intelligent extraterrestrials. So, to mark the anniversary of the signal, the National Geographic Channel, or Nat Geo, sent a return signal of sorts into space.
The network collected Twitter messages, or tweets, on June 29th as part of the marketing effort by Nat Geo to promote their television show, Chasing UFOs. These messages were then beamed into space by the Arecibo radio telescope located at the Arecibo Observatory in Puerto Rico and was broadcast live on natgeotv.com.
Lee Spiegel of the Huffington Post explains that although the WOW signal was detected in the southern hemisphere, Nat Geo signal wasn't returned in that direction. Michael Nolan, an astronomer at the Arecibo Observatory, explained to the Huffington Post, Arecibo can't look in that spot in the sky. We can only look at things that are in the northern hemisphere, and so we're not able to do that.
Spiegel explains that astronomers from the SETI Institute in California were consulted about possible targets for Nat Geo's transmission. Based on recommendation, the Arecibo telescope beamed Nat Geo's messages in the direction of star systems with Earth-like planets.
Again, this whole exercise was mainly a publicity stunt to promote a television show. Nobody is expecting a response to the messages that were beamed into space, and after reading some of the embarrassing submitted tweets, it doesn't seem that most of these messages deserve a response anyway.
No, thank God that they're sending them not towards the WOW response or Earth-like planets, because they're pretty shameful, and I don't want to be represented with what came out of that.
No, not at all. I'm not sure why, but a YouTube video showing an alleged UFO over the South Pole received a bit of attention this week. Live Science took note of this video that shows a sphere-shaped object over an Antarctic research station on August 10th.
The poster of the YouTube video suggested the unidentified object could be a UFO or even the theoretical rogue planet Nibiru. But noted skeptic Benjamin Radford quickly pointed out that this scientific research station carries out tests and experiments in a wide variety of areas, including geophysics, meteorology, and atmospheric chemistry. Weather balloons are used extensively to study and sample the atmosphere at different times and altitudes above Antarctica.
And although almost always I find Radford entirely too biased and quick to leap to make huge leaps to conclusions, in this particular instance, his logic makes sense to me. This is a place that does have a lot of weather balloon activity, and in this particular video, the basis of the video was a time-lapse video
Correct.
taken at the area, and the object only appears for a couple frames, and that's because it is time-lapsed.
Which is primarily why I thought kind of the suggestion that it could be Nibiru was pretty ludicrous.
Right,
And it's only in a few frames, and also from perspective of where it's actually appearing, it doesn't look like it's so far up in the atmosphere that it would be an actual planet.
And again, I'm surprised to see that this video did get as much attention as it did, mainly because it's like millions of other videos on YouTube where somebody saw something, they then created a cheesy video with all sorts of goofy graphics and
loud music,
mysterious music, and just jumping to tremendous conclusions. So I'm sorry to say I do agree with Radford on this one.
I as well. Our audience submission today comes to us from Joe Kiernan in South Carolina.
You might remember that we talked about Kiernan a few weeks ago when we reported the story of recent UFOs in North Myrtle Beach. Kieran contacted us to let us know that he continues to see strange objects in both the day and nighttime skies.
And he isn't the only one seeing these UFOs. According to Kieran, hundreds of people stand on the beach watching the strange lights with him.
This is very interesting to me.
Right. And it's noted that out of these hundreds of people, there's been police officers, Coast Guard, and notable people, and nobody knows what they are.
And this isn't just him saying this. The local media has done stories on it. The Coast Guard has been out looking for the source of these lights and has been unable to determine what's going on. And Kieran tells us that he sees these lights pretty much every single day. And he's also noted increased military activity in the area, whereas that hasn't been the case in the past.
Yeah, and so if anybody else happens to live in that area and has caught anything on video or camera, we'd love to see your photos and videos.
Absolutely, and thank you, Joe, for your submission. We appreciate it. In space news this week, NASA's latest Mars rover, Curiosity, has not begun roving the planet yet, but is already providing scientists back on Earth with a wealth of information and awe-inspiring imagery. With data from Curiosity and with images from the high-resolution imaging science experiment, the HiRISE camera on NASA's Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, scientists are mapping the Gale crater region where Curiosity landed on August 5th. And Curiosity's landing site has been dubbed Quad 51. No relation to Area 51, according to NASA.
According to Florida Today, NASA has officially named the landing site Yellowknife after the capital city of Northwest Territories, Canada, where geologists discovered Earth's oldest rocks. A group of scientists responsible for mapping the area around the landing site divided the area up into about 1 mile by 1 mile quads, or squares, and Curiosity just so happened to land in Quad 51.
Although Florida Today speculates that conspiracy theorists are going to go nuts when they discover NASA's Curiosity rover landed in Area 51 inside Gale Crater, Curiosity Science Chief John Grosinger says assigning the same number to this particular quadrant as the secretive military installation in Nevada was completely by accident.
But a fun coincidence.
Fun coincidence, for sure.
With the successful landing of Mars Science Laboratory rover Curiosity, it is not surprising to see an increased attention given to Mars. But one space pioneer has had his sights set on Mars for quite some time.
That's right. Elon Musk, the billionaire entrepreneur who co-created online payment service PayPal, founded Tesla Motorsports, and founded leading private space company SpaceX, is vocal about his desire to go to Mars as soon as possible. But as ABC News explains, he isn't just looking to take people there, he wants to make it possible for people to thrive there and even establish businesses. In December 2011, Musk told New Scientist that he wants to put 10,000 people on Mars. He went on to say, ultimately, we don't want 10,000 people on Mars, we want millions. And he claims he can do it for as little as $2 billion.
SpaceX has already achieved major milestones. In May 2012, the company's Dragon spacecraft became the first commercial spacecraft to successfully dock with the International Space Station. In a relatively short period of time, SpaceX has established itself as a leader in spaceflight technology. The company has secured contracts with NASA and even funding.
In an interview on ABC's Nightline, on August 6, Musk explained that making the move to Mars affordable is crucial for colonization to occur. He stated, "We know it's possible to get there. The question is a much more difficult one, which is, can we make a trip to Mars affordable for the average person in the United States? You would be moving to Mars, so I think affordable has to be no more than $500,000. I know it's possible."
The Mars Society presented Musk with the Mars Pioneer Award on Saturday, August 4th during their 15th annual International Mars Society Convention in Pasadena, California. The Society acknowledged Musk because of his strong dedication to and support of the goal of human exploration and settlement of the planet Mars.
Musk estimates his company will be ready to send Americans to Mars in 12 to 15 years. That's right around the corner.
Yeah, and I kind of like this statement because it's the first time we've seen someone bring up the subject of affordability, because all these other space trips are not affordable. And technically, $500,000, would be somebody buying a house. But I don't know if he's associating costs into that of living quarters on Mars or anything associated with the cost of what it's going to be to relocate there on top of just the travel.
Right. Not sure what that ticket gets you, if that's just your transportation or if that's your
Right.
habitat as well.
And then you're going to have to figure out your business here. If
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but as we've been very vocal on this show, we're very excited about SpaceX and the things they're doing, and that's been definitely something that is very important to Elon Musk, and he's always tried to do that, to decrease the cost of space transportation to make it more attainable for anybody. And so far, the company's been really successful at that.
And I actually think that maybe we'll see this happen in our lifetime.
Oh, I guarantee it will.
Yeah.
I'm going out on a limb there, but I'm pretty sure it's going to happen.
You want to put money on it? No, just kidding. Although some scientists are pessimistic about finding life elsewhere in our galaxy, there are many who believe our galaxy has many potential places in which life could exist. And some of Jupiter and Saturn's moons are among the most promising.
Kevin Peter Hand, a planetary scientist and astrobiologist, recently explained in an article published on CNN.com, these moons, worlds with names like Europa, Enceladus, and Titan, are covered with solid water ice, beneath which we have very good reason to believe that vast liquid water oceans exist. On Earth, where there is water, life is usually present. Hand surmises that these moons with substantial water could be great homes for alien ecosystems. But in saying this, he carefully notes, when I say alien ecosystems, I'm referring primarily to microbes and simple life forms. As much as I'd love to discover creatures like those seen in the movie The Abyss, I'd be happy just to find considerable speck of a microbe.
Hand believes Jupiter's moon, Europa, may have the perfect combination of liquid water and the chemistry needed to sustain life. He describes, Europa provides an incredibly compelling place to go to search for a second independent origin of life, and it's a place where we might find life forms that are alive today.
As someone who has explored the deepest depths of Earth's ocean, Hand knows very well that understanding our habitable environments here on Earth continues to change with discoveries of ecosystems in the deepest parts of our oceans, and so too does our understanding of potentially habitable environments beyond Earth. And with 2 to 3 times the volume of all the liquid water on Earth, Europa's ocean is likely to have a wide variety of ecosystems. Let's go to Europa already.
Seriously, maybe it'll be easier from the Mars base.
Hope so.
Now let's talk with our guest today, Amy Shira Teitel.
Well, Amy, we're excited to talk to you today. Thanks so much for joining us on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is awesome.
Yeah, so recently, obviously the big news in space world is that Mars Curiosity landed on August 5th, and you were providing live coverage during the Fraser Cain Google Space Hangout. So we'd like to know a little bit about your experience doing that and what that was like.
It was awesome and kind of fun. It was, I love these hangouts because they're a great way to just kind of get involved with people. People are asking questions and we're really just hanging out. We kind of go into it saying, this isn't polished live television. We're just broadcasting being nerds. And it was so much fun to just sort of be involved and like on scene at JPL. The energy in that room and in that whole area was just unbelievable. So kind of bringing that to people was a lot of fun, and just sitting in the press hall watching the guys pacing on TV and then watching people watching me watching them was really weird. And it was fun to be right in the thick of it. And for me, it was just nerd heaven. I mean, I love this stuff. I've been following this story for ages. So yeah, it was really exciting.
Right. Not only was it an awesome event, but it was enormously historical too in terms of space exploration. So I bet that was added even more to just the awesomeness of being a part of it.
Yeah, this wasn't another Spirit or opportunity, which would be awesome, but it wasn't something that's been done before. This is a new landing system, 9 years in the making, opening up the potential for larger payloads, for sample return payloads. I mean, this has a lot of implications. Had it failed, it could have been kind of disastrous for the future on Mars, what future we have right now. But that it worked is just kind of like, okay, we are potentially opening up a whole new chapter of our space exploration, and that's really exciting. And it was really exciting to be a part of it, sort of.
Well, you are someone who specializes in the history of space exploration, and you run a blog called Vintage Space, and we love that, by the way. We're fans of Vintage Space, so good job with that. And you recently pointed out something, and it's funny, the Curiosity mission is major news. It is a gigantic leap forward in our future of exploration, but and there has been decent coverage of that, and we've been getting great images from Curiosity, but as you recently pointed out, there's been a lot of attention given to someone who's been named the Mohawk guy, NASA's Mohawk guy, this guy Bob Akfordowski. He's a 32-year-old flight director at JPL, and during the coverage of the Curiosity landing, there was a lot of focus on this guy's hairdo. He's got a mohawk. But as you pointed out in your recent article, a lot of people have been basically using this guy's attention, pointing out his mohawk, his hairdo, saying that this is an indicator of the younger, hip version of NASA. We're seeing a younger demographic involved in NASA. But you recently pointed out that that's not entirely the case.
No, that's not the case at all, actually. Old NASA, as it were, is actually much younger NASA. When you think about the time frame of the space race and the Apollo program, right? NASA was created in 1958 to get a man in space, and nobody knew how to do this. And you had some guys coming from the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics, which is sort of NASA's predecessor, but they were only the younger guys, the guys in their 30s, because there were a lot of guys in their 40s and 50s that had been doing aviation for so long and thought, this space thing does not feel like a good enough bet to risk my career. So then you have these young guys in the space program, and they're just recruiting. I mean, there weren't PhD programs in, space flight systems or anything. They were just bringing guys straight out of college that had the passion to do it, the technological know-how, and some idea of how to run and make it happen. The average age, I pointed out in my article, the average age of the guys listening to Neil Armstrong's landing on the moon was 26. That's really young. That makes me feel really old. But I mean, one of the stories that I really love in this era is the time Apollo 12 got struck by lightning twice, and it bottomed out all of their electronics and systems. And the guy that knew the solution was 24, and he'd come up with this, a couple of years before, just in a simulation, and had just followed his curiosity and taken what he knew of the systems and how they work to save this mission. I mean, 24, that's really young. And I know there are young guys at JPL now and at NASA now, but a lot of them are people who've been doing back-to-back missions. I mean, there are guys on MSL who've been there since Pathfinder, since the Sojourner rover, and that was in 97. So the average age at NASA and in mission control behind these missions is getting steadily older as we move forward. And yeah, it's interesting that people have latched onto this. It's sort of like new, young, hip NASA, but, the guys back then were actual rock stars and had actual fan bases, and not just.
Yeah, I think people always focus too much on that kind of appearance thing too. I mean, everyone's always saying Jason can't, be serious about things because he has a mohawk, and it's people tend to grab onto what they think is odd and focus on that, when really the whole big part of that is we just did something completely historic, and that's what they should be focusing on.
Yeah, and that's part of what kind of spurred me on to write that article, was everyone's talking about this mohawk, but I noticed that in all of the people kind of talking about his hair, nobody knew what he did on the mission. Everyone's saying, that little thing of Bobek is my co-pilot, those little like cardboard cutouts. People are now thinking that he's the rover driver, which he's not, thinking that he's some software engineer. It's really interesting. People are so excited by this hairstyle, but not stopping to think of what's actually what the mohawk guy is doing. So I kind of just wanted to point out that there's a lot more science behind haircuts, and that haircuts are less important than science.
Exactly. Well, so obviously we're taking sort of a new turn in space too with this whole private space industry, and we're seeing companies like Planetary Resources, SpaceX, and all these other companies doing these huge things. What are your thoughts on private space industry, and what do you think sort of that's going to mean for the future of space exploration?
I think it's a good thing. I think it's about the right time probably to bring in these other companies into spaceflight, just because NASA doesn't have the money to do everything that it wants. It can't keep doing these low Earth orbital manned programs like the shuttle and these massive flagship missions to Mars. And I mean, I want to go to Titan in Europa, and you can't do all these things with a very limited budget. So if you have these private companies that are slowly taking over the low Earth orbital stuff, I expect that would free up NASA to do more of these giant unmanned planetary exploration missions, which to me are way more exciting than just going up to the space station. And I'd like to see that happen. I don't really know I don't know how it's going to play out. I know SpaceX wants to get the first people onto Mars, and maybe they will, but for now, I mean, NASA's the one that's got the know-how, and they're still more advanced, although SpaceX is making some pretty impressive strides. As for sort of planetary resources and commercializing asteroid mining, if it works, awesome. But I kind of love that James Cameron's involved, because I feel like this is just begging to be like an Avatar type movie.
Yeah.
Well, and also with Mars and colonizing Mars, you've got Mars One. That's like reality TV show take people to Mars. So who knows how serious that's going to be either.
I can't imagine a more tawdry way to go to Mars. I'd be so sad. I know that it would fund it, and I know that it would be great to get people involved, but do we really need to have reality TV mixing into our space exploration?
I don't think we can avoid it. It's mixed into everything in our lives now, unfortunately.
We'll see if SpaceX, if Elon Musk beats Mars One to the punch there. I think they have similar timetables.
Maybe that will be the new space race, is Elon Musk versus Robert Zubrin versus Mars One, and they'll all just like race to Mars and see what happens.
All those one-way tickets to Mars, pretty scary.
Yeah,
I'm not jumping on board yet.
No. That'd be an interesting race to watch, though.
It would. That would be interesting.
Yeah. But, you pointed out with Curiosity and how all eyes were on that mission. And, if it had failed, if it had crashed and not landed successfully, it would have been disastrous for, the future of Mars missions. And similarly, that was the case with SpaceX when with the Dragon capsule and docking with the ISS. If that hadn't been successful, that would have been a major setback to commercial space. And because these missions are being successful, I think we're seeing a lot more interest, re-energizing people's interest, the general public's interest in space and space exploration. Are you seeing that? And do you think that's going to help generate and fuel this new generation of scientists and people willing to contribute to the exploration of space?
I think so. Yeah, the comparison between the Dragon and the MSL mission is a little bit tough to make, only because SpaceX doesn't have to please taxpayers. SpaceX, if their missions fail, I mean, they've got, I don't know their financial situation in, great detail, but I imagine they could do another one. Whereas with NASA, yeah, they have money. Whereas NASA, if it fails, they lose funding, they lose support from Congress, it just trickles down and destroys everything. But I think you are right that these missions succeeding and these really big flagship missions are getting people excited about space, whether or not they fully understand what the impact that this has and how important this is. Remains to be seen, as we're seeing with the Mohawk. But I think it does a lot to kind of get people involved. And as someone who communicates science, I'm just trying to capitalize on this and keep that momentum rolling and try to get people, this is still exciting. Mars is still exciting 4 weeks after it lands. And, just kind of try to keep that moving, because it's great to see people a little bit more involved. Being a nerd is sort of coming back into vogue, although, it's one kind of nerd.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah, I was shocked that they actually chose to broadcast it in Times Square, the landing of Curiosity. That was.
How many people were there? I saw some pictures, it looked like a huge crowd, and some pictures it looked like a
5
spark.
people.
It's really hard to tell, but there was a Mars, the Planetary Society put on a Mars party the night before landing, just because landing was too late to have an event afterwards. And there were a impressive number of people there, actually. And it was a lot of public, but it was a lot of people dressed like Martians. So, different. There were all kinds of different types. It was weird. It was very interesting.
Wow.
I see a lot of that people posting around like what we hope not to encounter on Mars, and they take all of, sort of history's examples of Martians and what, different alien creatures might look like on Mars. And it's kind of ridiculous, but in all honesty, what we're probably going to find is a lot more microbial than.
Yeah, if anything, it'll be tiny little microbes. Yeah.
Not Marvin the Martian.
No. If they have ray guns, they probably would have killed our rovers by now.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I said to Jason the other day. I said, what do you think that an intelligent species would think if they saw Mars Curiosity roving by? And he goes, probably squash it like a bug.
Yeah. I think that we have rovers, like we've had 15 years now of continuous robotic presence on Mars. I think that we haven't been obliterated is probably indicative that there's no intelligent life.
Yeah.
Yeah. I might get in trouble for saying that, but we'll see.
Do you think Curiosity is going to find signs of past or present extraterrestrial life on Mars?
Well, I mean, Curiosity is not looking for life specifically, right? It's looking for the environment that could have supported life. I don't know. I just don't. I would like to see more evidence that there could have been life on past Mars to kind of keep fueling interest in that and keep learning more about the planet. If it found some kind of, microbe fossil in a rock that it zaps the laser, that would be awesome. That would be really, really good proof. Way better than, evidence of certain minerals, because that could or could not have anything to do with life. So, yeah, I'd really like to see that happen. I'd like to see a little fossil come back. Well, not come back, but pictures of the fossil come back.
I can't wait till they fire up that laser. That's pretty cool.
That's really neat. Yeah, that I think is also going to get the public pretty interested in Mars, is being able to zap rocks with lasers.
And do you remember how far away that thing can zap? It's something insane.
It's like 30 feet.
Yeah.
I think I read this morning. Yeah, 30 feet. That's not an insubstantial distance to be able to zap rocks.
Serious laser, yeah.
Space
Well, it's
laser.
great because I was looking at that instrument, and it's got a telescope attachment as well, so that it can actually look at the dust plume coming out and measure what's being kind of the atoms excited by the laser, which is neat. And I thought, there's a telescope, it's got to be far away. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, Amy, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today. It's been fun. And for people interested in reading about all the interesting things you write about vintage space, you can check out Amy's website. What is your website, Amy? It's amyshirateitel.com/vintage space. Is that right?
Yes, it is.
All right, fantastic. Well, thank you so much, and we'll have you on again.
Thanks,
Great,
Amy.
thank you. Bye.
Bye.
On this show, we like to highlight events we think you might be interested in, like these. A seminar on From Climate to Space, Hot Topics for the Station Scientist will be held in Brookline, Massachusetts on August 24th at the Clay Center Observatory. Topics include potentially hazardous asteroids and comets, understanding Mars, and searching for worlds like our own. Find out more at ametsoc.org. The MUFON PA East Coast Conference is September 28th through the 30th at Sheraton Bucks County Hotel in Langhorne, PA, featuring speakers, field investigator training, cocktail parties, and more. Visit MUFONPA.com for more information. The 2013 International UFO Congress will be held February 26th through March 3rd at the Fort McDowell Resort and Casino in Fountain Hills, Arizona. Register before September 1st to get the lowest ticket rates possible. Prices will go up on September 2nd. You can find out more at ufocongress.com.
That's all for this episode of Spacing Out. Be sure to visit openminds.tv for all the latest news. And be sure to join us next week when we'll talk with the Mutual UFO Network's Deputy Director for International Investigations, Ruben Uriarty.
Thanks for joining us. And remember, if you'd like to submit a photo, video, or anything else to the show, you can always email us at contact@openminds.tv, and we might just include it in a future episode. I'm Maureen Ellsbury.
And I'm Jason McClellan. We will see you in the future.